Yeah, so sorry about the technical issues. I'm just going to back up here a little bit. Thank you for joining our webinar. Many blessings to all of you in the communities you serve, and I appreciate your time and attention and your support for our new group. The Native American Credit Union Coalition is really excited and with open arms in the credit union industry, give you a big welcome to just participate in our organization. According to the agenda here, I'm going to just go over it briefly because I know we're running a little behind, but we're going to go over introductions, a brief history, and some of our initiatives. And we're also going to give you some insight about some of the challenges and unique perspectives from Native Americans' populations, financial disparity, perceived risks, and we want to just address some of the questions that many of us have received when we have worked with others in the credit union industry. And we also want to talk about building culturally relevant financial sustainability in Native American homes. We'll be facilitating a conversation with Tom Sakash at the end of the presentation, so that you have an opportunity to just hear from some of our founding members about some of the work they're doing in Indian country. Next slide, please. All right, so this great looking group of people met in Seattle this last fall, and I'm just going to introduce you to them briefly. So there's Leilani Harpel from Atoke, Missouri Federal Credit Union. She's on the call with us today. Maria Valandra from Clearwater Credit Union isn't on the call with us today, but she's here in spirit. Shayna Ferguson, Lakota Federal Credit Union. Lexi Hunter, Lakota Federal Credit Union. John Douglas from Credit Union of America. Denise Hudson from Tongass Federal Credit Union. Jade Jordan from Tongass Federal Credit Union. Grant Echohawk from Tongass Federal Credit Union. If you don't know Helen Mickle, you might be out of touch, but Helen Mickle from Tongass Credit Union. And Samira Salem from America's Credit Unions. Tom Sakash, your credit union partner. With this group of people, we have organized the coalition, and we're very excited to start making some difference in the credit union industry. Next slide, please. All right, so here's a picture at our first planning session. I just want to give you some insight as to how our beginnings began. So Denise Hudson and Helen Mickle, both from Tongass Federal Credit Union, attended a conference with OISA. If you're unfamiliar with OISA, they're a native CDFI organization, and they do amazing work. They really work on building equality in Native country. And when Denise went to the conference, she mentioned to Helen that it was refreshing and exciting to see people that reflected her community and her family. And when they shared this story with us, I too was excited and inspired to find out what more I could contribute to this cause. And with that one little seed of inspiration, we are here today. And so Helen and I don't know if Denise reached out to, but we have a lot of support from Tongass Federal Credit Union, in case you haven't noticed. But they started reaching out to some of us that were asking questions or maybe already working out in our communities. And we started collaborating and finding out, like, what did we want? What kind of resources did we need? What kind of conversations were we having? And so the coalition began, and we started having monthly meetings by Zoom. And then we eventually ended up at this planning session. And I want to thank Go West Credit Association for giving us the space and hosting us. But we were able to really do a lot during that session, which was establish our mission, our purpose, our vision, and our values. And we got a lot done. We were all excited, and we're here today. So with that little bit of love and care, we have some great ideas, and we are excited to invite more of our community from the credit union industry and to help us see these dreams come true. All right, so I'm going to pass it off to Leilani Harpel from Atoke, Missouri Federal Credit Union.
Hello, how is everybody? Again, my name is Leilani Harpel, and I'm with, as she stated, Atoke, Missouri Federal Credit Union, which is in Red Rock, Oklahoma, or rather Central Oklahoma. And our committee has had several meetings, like Diane had mentioned, to establish our initiatives that were derived from the guiding principles, which is what I will go over now. So the first initiative listed is networking and collaboration, which is to facilitate connection between Native credit unions for shared learning and strategic partnerships. One plan for this initiative is to build a network or platform for communication. With this network, we can hopefully host virtual forums by creating an online space for Native credit unions and partners to share ideas, best practices, and resources. Another idea for networking is to organize workshops to address financial literacy in Native communities, learn about innovative lending practices and technology adoption. And we plan to, hopefully do some of this on our own, but then also take advantage of maybe national events such as the GAC to possibly coordinate a breakout or a workshop to specifically focus on credit unions that are serving Native communities. The next initiative is resource sharing, which is to offer tools, best practices, and financial education resources to strengthen credit union operations. Resource sharing and networking kind of blend in many ways. And I guess what we would like to plan to implement is, through, again, a shared digital platform where participants may have access to training information or financial literacy materials that are specifically geared towards the Native American community. Other options may include referral networks where members may be referred to a partner credit union for specialized loans or services not offered by their primary institution. Community support is another initiative, which is to support tribal communities through financial education and access to credit. There are still underserved and unbanked Native American communities, and our expectation is to find ways to bring financial education opportunities, help members understand banking technologies where needed, and collaborate with credit unions to reach out and provide the necessary access to Native American communities. To ensure Native Americans have a voice in the financial sector, advocacy is an initiative so that we can represent the interests of Native American credit unions and communities in policy discussions and industry forums. One way we may do this is to build a network that shares a unified voice to collaborate on policy advocacy at state and federal levels, and who knows, maybe even local and tribal levels. The last initiative listed is professional development. The coalition plans to provide training, mentorship, and leadership development for Native American credit union professionals. Two possible ways that we've kind of touched on maybe to leverage human capital with mentorship programs or skill sharing programs that allow personnel with specialized expertise to provide training or consulting. So at this stage, there's still a lot of work to be done, ideas to be vetted, and action steps to be introduced to carry out these initiatives. But the coalition, what we're focused on too, is building a strong foundation for us to grow up on. These initiatives were derived from our guiding principles, which are our mission, purpose, and vision statements, which will be on the next slide. So I'll just kind of go over these real quick and then and touch on one of our value statements, but it's definitely worth hearing. So our mission is to unite Native American credit union professionals and institutions serving Indigenous populations to advocate and share best practices to strengthen our communities and honor our heritage and values. And I love that last, heritage and values, because that means so much. Our purpose is to serve as a resource for credit unions and credit union professionals to support tribal communities through collaborative efforts. And then, of course, our vision is that every tribal nation has a credit union working to enhance the financial well-being of members. And I just love that vision. I love that idea of there being access to all tribal communities. So again, these guiding principles are the foundation for the initiatives that were already introduced. They also align with 7 value statements to guide our journey and actions. One value statement we would like to share is cultural respect and preservation. which states that we are to honor and preserve our rich cultural heritages by integrating traditional values and practices into all we do, ensuring that our unique identities are celebrated and respected. And again, I love that part, ensuring that everyone's unique identity is respected. So, this value involves thoughtful and intentional action, which may or probably will include the partnering of Native American organizations directly to support Indigenous cultural authenticity. We definitely want to be authentic. Educating oneself about the history, culture, and traditions of Native American tribes and understanding the differences between tribes, as each has unique practices excuse me. Okay. Each has unique practices and beliefs, and then give credit and acknowledge to contributions of Native creators in our products. So, if the storytellers, wherever we get the information from, we need to recognize them and honor them. So, through our initiatives and guiding principles and values, we are building a coalition that uplifts and respects Native American culture, and I am so proud to be, a part of this organization, and just can't wait to see how this network continues to grow and grow. So, I guess at this time, I believe Diane, are you taking over again? No, Who's,
I'll take it. This
or
was going to be
Denise?
who was
Okay.
un He was unable to join us today, so I'll be taking her slides. Thank you all for joining. We really appreciate you all being here. But I wanted to go over, I wanted to start by grounding us in the resilience of Indigenous communities. Um, if you click, Samira, or can you click so some of the slide appears? Um, Today, there are 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States, each with its own history, governance, and culture. Despite centuries of adversity, Native people continue to preserve and revitalize their traditions. And language is a key part of this. There are 167 Indigenous languages still spoken, but it's estimated that only 20 Indigenous languages will remain by the year 2050. Even Navajo, the most spoken native language with 170,000 speakers, doesn't rank among the top 25 languages in the United States. Across Indian country, people are blending traditional practices with modern tools to strengthen their cultural heritage, whether it's using digital apps to teach language, sharing traditional art through social media, or revitalizing ceremonies in new ways. Native communities are proving that our cultures aren't just surviving, our cultures are evolving and also thriving. Maintaining our cultural connection is very important, not just for our identity, but for economic and social well-being. And that's where credit unions can play a role. Next slide, please. So, did you know? I wanted to talk about some challenges in Native communities that Native communities face when it comes to financial access. A 2017 study found that for tribes in mainland US, the average distance to the nearest physical branch was 12.2 miles, and for some, it is over 70 miles. That's not just inconvenient, it's a barrier to financial inclusion. Beyond access, there's also disparities in financial opportunity. So Native women earn just 59 cents for every dollar a non-Hispanic white man earns. And more than half of Native women are the primary breadwinners for their families, which makes this wage gap even more critical. Small businesses, which are the backbone of many Native communities, also face many challenges. Accessing credit is often difficult for Native entrepreneurs, and credit we know is a key driver of business growth. And research shows that early exposure to financial institutions can improve long-term financial outcomes. This means that when we bring credit union services into Native communities, whether through physical branches or even just digital banking or financial education, we're not just providing a service, we're building financial stability for future generations. Next slide, please. I wanted to take a moment to look at this map. What you're seeing here is a visual representation of financial access in Indian country. The highlighted locations show Native credit unions and banks, specifically those recognized as Native CDFIs or MDIs. I'm so glad to those that are already serving in Indian country. But there's something else that this map highlights. If you take a look, there are very large areas of Native land with no Native credit unions or banks at all. There's entire tribal nations that still lack access to locally available banking services. And this means that my Native brothers and sisters in other tribal lands lack access to banking. And because of that, they struggle to do things like secure home loans or obtain their small business financing. They have limited access to affordable checking and savings accounts. And so they often turn to high cost predatory financial services as their only options. What we think needs to happen is that we need to expand Native financial institutions to serve more tribal lands. Of course, we prefer if it would be a credit union. We love credit unions. There needs to be stronger collaboration between tribes and credit unions to overcome barriers. And we know that when Native financial institutions thrive, so do our communities. And when credit unions serve Indigenous populations, then my Native brothers and sisters can also build wealth and opportunity. And the gaps on this map, they also represent opportunities, opportunities to grow financial inclusion and build Native wealth and also strengthen tribal economies. Next slide. So this is perceived risk. Why aren't more mainstream banks and credit unions stepping in? We think that it comes down to some perceived risk, which is could be tied to a lack of understanding about how lending in Indian country works. One of the biggest concerns is sovereign immunity. Because tribes are sovereign nations, lenders often fear that if a loan goes into default, they won't be able to pursue legal action in state courts. There's also jurisdictional differences. Tribal courts operate independently of state and federal courts, and non-Indigenous lenders can be unfamiliar with how they enforce those contracts. And then each tribe can have its own version of the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, and this variability can make lenders very hesitant. But we feel like these risks can be mitigated. Many tribes have clear legal frameworks already for lending, and partnerships with Native financial institutions can help navigate these differences. When financial institutions take the time to understand and engage with the tribes, they can open doors for opportunities, not just for tribal citizens, but for the bank's own or credit union's own long-term success in serving those communities. I wanted to point out that my own credit union, Tongass Federal, was the first branch was opened in Metlakatla. And after opening in Metlakatla, which is a native reserve in Alaska, they were able to grow from there, and our credit union's thriving. Like, we have branches all over the place, and growth was pretty stagnant before, and it all started with that branch in Metlakatla. But at the heart of this is trust and partnership. Indigenous communities have always adapted and innovated, and financial services should be no different. When Native economies are strong, we all benefit. And I pass it along to Jade.
Introduction, Denise. Thank you, Denise. Samira, could you share the rest? Introduction. Emma Flag, Jade Jordan, DYU. Shu Methakatha Diwal Dogu Ada Alaska Diwal Latku. Congress Federal Credit Union, Dipwe Wabdalashim. Good morning. Jade Jordan is my name. I live in Metlakatla, Alaska, and Tongass Federal Credit Union is our house of money. So what I would like to start out talking about is how Native communities face disadvantages to begin with, like Denise said, because of the distance, because of many different factors. We're at financial disadvantages, and there is a high lack of services for our Native communities. Could you share the rest of the screen? Sorry. So some top examples of the disadvantages that we face are the rate of being unbanked. So just like the visual had showed, there are 16.3% communities that are unbanked. They have no credit union, they have no traditional bank. And for comparison, this is in comparison to the 4% of the unbanked Latino communities, in the 2% and 1.5%, I believe, in the African American communities. 17% cash checks at check cashing services, which means they are cashing their checks and they're paying $20 to $25 to $30 in order to receive the funds they worked for already. And we also have a high home ownership rate compared to the 23% that white Americans have. So whereas we have this 50%, the same research showed that 73% of white Americans had the home ownership rate. All of this growing up in a financial desert has a lot of adverse effect in your adult life. This will lead to lower credit scores because you can't maintain your payments, or maybe you haven't been educated on taking care of your credit. Same with having more delinquent accounts. You can't manage an account that you can't communicate with, or that you can't use online banking with. And overall, there's higher lending costs because, like Denise had mentioned, they have to turn to some of these more or less sharp lenders. Could you show the next slide, please? So because of those disadvantages in the history, you have to understand that the community will have a mindset about financial services and outsiders. There will be a large distrust of outsiders. We are witness to a very high turnover and low retention rate. And this is true in many different aspects of our community. We have high turnover in the schools. We have high turnover in healthcare and law enforcement and in financial institutions. So when TFCU came to Metlakatla, our community asked them to come in the first place because there was a Wells Fargo branch here and they had closed that branch, meaning if we wanted to cash checks or open an account, we had to go a minimum of 15 miles away. And since we're on a remote island, it would have meant that we have to take the day off, catch a ferry to the next island or a small plane. But there's a distrust because they don't stick around. And you can assume, as far as the membership goes, that non-traditional situations will create a barrier. There's a high volume of multi-generational homes. You have to understand how to work with leased land. And it's often hard to verify income, and there's a lack of physical addresses, which we have to comply with in order to meet the the new account opening needs. And so all of this together kind of sets us 5 feet behind the line. You know, we're going into this with them not likely to trust us. There's this snippet from the OWISTA training that Diane had mentioned earlier. Many of us have taken OWISTA classes, and this really stuck with me. A Native community is more than the sum of its parts. It embodies the mystique of community, the circle of inclusion. Within each member, it generates powerful feelings of cultural solidarity. That precious spirit cannot survive without the underpinnings of economic development. But the development must be for everyone, not just for a few. That is the Native understanding. Our purpose is to enable community members to realize their traditional values by learning financial skills that will help each person make informed financial decisions for themselves, their family, and their community. The other thing that's important to remember is that the economy and dealing with finances and savings, all of these things, they're not new concepts to Indigenous people. We had a system of bartering, and as far as savings goes, we didn't save cash, but we would save our resources. And depending on your region, that might look like saving fish, or it might look like harvesting berries. It might look like hunting. We would save in different ways, and we would barter with the neighboring communities that had what we didn't have. And as far as the community economic system, the Native way is that we don't measure wealth by what we have, but by what we can give. And ever since I had become a founding member of this coalition, it has always just made sense. Credit union values and Native values just about directly align. We are people helping people. And I did have a few examples of the inclusion that my credit union has supported me in. And here's a couple of translations in my own language. So we had a word for saving. And like I said, we saved fish for a big salmon area. And our word for it was Axia Anskit. And then, like I said, we also had the system for trading. And if I were going to state that I am going to trade fish, I would say Dimski sit out to home. I am going to trade fish. I just thought I'd share an example. I really appreciate everyone's time. Introduction to everyone for joining, and I'm going to go ahead and hand this back off to Diane.
Actually, am I up next? Is it Tom? I think this is a facilitated conversation with Mr. Tom Sakash. I hope that intro was good enough for you, sir.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Diane. And thanks to the group. Great presentation. I think we're all still learning for sure about the challenges, but also the opportunity for the credit union industry to come together and really support these communities across the country. It's been an honor to be a part of this group and to provide my support where I can. It kind of goes back to conversations that I've been having with Helen for it seems like years now, where Helen would she would come to me when she was a member of the small credit union committee and say, how do we get more credit unions on tribal lands? They are the perfect solution to all the financial challenges that are facing the members of these communities. How do we do it? How do we do it? And, you know, those conversations, I think, in collaboration with this group led to this budding organization. I think the other thing I'll mention to those who are listening and watching is that this is still a brand new organization. A lot of decisions are still being made. A lot of work still needs to be done to sort of formalize and stand it up. And so we are looking for support and help, both in the way of just hands-on, you know, get your hands dirty help, but also, you know, more formal support. And so after the meeting today, we're going to send some information out to everybody who's tuned in to share, you know, sort of the avenues that you have to provide support or to get involved. So keep an eye out in your email inbox for those ways that you can get involved. The other thing I want to mention is that this is the Q&A portion. So I have some questions that I want to ask the panelists to hear a little bit more about their experience, but you also have the opportunity to ask them questions. So please start thinking about those questions related to what the organization is trying to accomplish, the cultural experiences of our panelists, and how you might be able to get involved. And then before I ask my first questions, I also wanted to give a shout out to some of the organizations that helped us during the strategic planning session that we held in Seattle a couple of months ago. So NACUC and the AACUC and CULA all participated to sort of help give us ideas on how the Native American Credit Union Coalition could go about building an organization. It's such a great example of how this industry comes together to collaborate and, you know, help each other out to, you know, further expand this great movement of ours. So thanks to those groups. But my first question, as you all are thinking about your questions for our panelists, is to Denise and Jade. So, you know, you represent a Native community that has direct experience with the power and support of a credit union coming in and providing an opportunity both in terms of employment, but also sort of financial support, you know, from a credit union. What has that experience meant to you, and why has it inspired you to work to form this organization?
I can go ahead and start. So my community in Metlakatla, it's been it's a cash-based economy. Fishing is our primary source of income. So I don't know if you could see in my picture here, there's the cannery here. That's right on our waterfront in the bay in Metlakatla. And that's the moneymaker for Metlakatla. But what many people would do is they would fish in the summer, and at the end of the summer, they would have a boatload of cash, but very little financial structure. When they needed a car, they'd just buy it outright, and then they'd often struggle through the winter, rather than doing something like leveraging credit to build a little more financial stability. But through really building trust with my communities, took a lot of hard work, but we've helped our members embrace banking. So they make their deposits, they do their banking with us, and I feel most importantly, they've gotten their credit through us. We've shown them that good credit isn't just about a score, and it's a tool that opens doors for them. And I feel like the results really speak for themselves. Since our credit union came to my town, the average credit score in Metlakatla has gone up by 74 points, which is more than double that of our peers in other Alaskan towns. So 74 points is incredible. But it's not just about their credit scores. I just love seeing members of my community my neighbors, my friends, my family. I love to see them gain financial security, buy homes, start businesses, and build futures where they don't just get by, and where they thrive. And it's really been honestly life-changing to witness. I honestly can't walk through my town, and it's hard to find someone that we haven't helped in some way or another. So I can see the work, the good things that a credit union can do in a community. Um, and that's why I feel passionate about expanding this work beyond Metlakatla, because I know what we have done in Metlakatla it doesn't have to be unique to just us. Um, Other Native communities across the nation can achieve the same thing. So many of my Native brothers and sisters have been left out of the financial system. Like we said, they rely on cash. They struggle with predatory lenders, and we've seen firsthand what access and education and support from a credit union can do. Our deposits, they don't just go into a vault, they go back to help members of our own community. And when our friends and neighbors in Metlakatla have financial questions, they just don't go to a big bank that doesn't understand them. They come to us, we're their financial partners, and seeing my own community become stronger and wealthier, it's really made me more passionate to make sure that other Native communities have those same opportunities. So when one of us succeed, we all do. And I think every Native community deserves the chance to thrive the way mine has. I would love to see that across the nation.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we're recording this, Denise, because that response that you just gave, I'm sure gave every single person who's listening to this webinar the chills, because you perfectly explained the magic of credit unions. Maybe not even just for Native communities, but for the entire country. But it is so true that you can plunk down a credit union. You should be able to plunk down a credit union and look what can happen and how it can make an impact on the people, especially when they're underserved, like so many Native communities are. Jade, I don't know if you want to add to that. What does this process mean to you? What does this organization mean to you? As someone who has, maybe from an employment standpoint, now working for the credit union, how does that make you feel?
Um, I, after having looked at the question, I really feel like I came up with the same response that Denise had. It's so funny because I was really gonna comment on how my neighbors used to just cash checks when I first started here. Check in, cash out. And at the very least, we started out as a place where you can cash a check with no fees, and that's a good start. But like Denise said, we had to build some trust. And now that we have that trust and the members have felt that the credit union has invested in them, now they feel safe to keep their funds in their account with us. And the ripple effect is huge. And in my own personal family, I have a perfect example. My mom had gotten help from our VITA tax volunteer program that the credit union supports and offers here in my community, which led to her having some financial stability. We were able to move out of my yaya's home, that multi-generational home I was just talking about. And because TFCU was willing to take the time and help her through that, we got our first apartment. And later on, fast forward to my sister graduating high school, she signed up for our credit union's credit building program, and now she has her first car. And many, 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 many young adults have come to me seeking the same exact credit building program after I've had the opportunity to go into the schools and teach the importance of money management and using credit wisely, things that I didn't actually have exposure to as a high school student. And same as Denise. For me, it means that the friends and family around me are more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that's important to point out for this group is that we've had a lot of conversations about, starting new credit unions, starting new Native credit unions, started by Native people for Native people. That's not necessarily at this point an explicit purpose of the organization. As Diane explained at the beginning of the webinar, this is really about helping credit unions that serve Native communities already and also supporting Native credit union professionals. But I think all of us feel like if, at a certain point we can reach that level where we are helping Native communities start their own credit unions, that would be a very, very powerful thing, an impactful thing. So a future goal and aspiration of this group for sure. And so Leilani's credit union already serves a Native community, and I know she's really passionate about this group. And I wanted to ask her about the unique experiences she has serving a Native community, and maybe what she and what you would like to see the Native American Credit Union Coalition offer to help you and other Native serving credit unions do an even greater job serving those communities.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. Well, it has definitely been an eye opener for me. After chartering this credit union for the Oto Missouri tribe about 5.5 years ago, I thought I understood what it meant to serve the underserved, but I was completely wrong. I was totally blown away by the number of members who had never had an account at either a bank or a credit union, totally cash basis. Here in Oklahoma, it was very surprising to me. So, and then also, having worked at other credit unions, we were always A, B paper heavy, and I'm at the other end of the spectrum here. So that's been a real challenge. So a lot of what I used to do before just kind of went out the window, and, my members have been teaching me how to move along. So this coalition has been absolutely tremendous for me in getting ideas, being able to speak very openly about some of the issues I have, and then hearing the challenges others have and how they overcame them. So I am very appreciative for that. So what I would say our more immediate need here in this community is definitely financial education, that we can actually get our members to want to listen, how to speak in ways that they totally understand. I mean, when you're challenged and don't have money, or you're struggling, the last thing you want to talk about is money. And so, how can we, I'm hoping that we can find ways to, have a captive audience. The only way we seem to right now is when we have them in our office and when they actually need something. The other thing is, how do we increase the credit scores? Like I said, we're at the very bottom of the spectrum here on average credit score, and we need to find a way to improve that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and maybe even hopefully, down the road, collaborating with other financial institutions, because we are so small. We're only at 3.4 million, serving a small community, tribal community. That we may partner with another credit union for maybe housing or something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. All those things would be really wonderful to add for sure. And I did want to ask Grant, the same question. Grant, you come to this from a little bit different of a perspective, just based on your role with Tongass. But you're also sort of a shared employee with a loan fund, a CDFI loan fund. So do you want to talk a little bit about sort of that dynamic, and also just some of the things that you see in serving the Native community that you serve?
Sure, yeah, thank you. No, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending where you're at. Tatasada Tawihisi, my English name is Grant Echohawk, and I've been with Tongass Federal Credit Union now for about 4 years total in a variety of roles. My current role is as Tom mentioned, I'm in a shared position with another native CDFI. I currently do business support and business loan underwriting. That includes workshops, technical assistance to help entrepreneurs and startups get the funding that they need to get a business going or to expand. The position has been highly successful, and we've been able to deploy. We're going upwards of $2 million into our smaller rural communities and being able to support entrepreneurs that generally had there have been barriers to get the funding that they needed to get going. As we've already talked about throughout this presentation or this webinar, that a lot of our rural indigenous communities do face financial, that they're in a financial desert, and there's less opportunity presented. So what I'm really excited about my role is I'm able to work with different communities, work with different entrepreneurs, and I'm able to use different programs, either through Tongass Federal Credit Union, through the other organization, Spruce Root, combine it with state, federal, and other CDFI programs to overcome some of the barriers to get the funding out into our communities. So it's been absolutely fantastic. I work with, by and large, most of the borrowers that I assist are five people or less businesses. The rest of it is maybe 10 folks or less. So these really are the smaller local businesses that are the backbone of our communities. And here in Alaska, we have less major industry. So these local businesses are really vital in keeping the economy strong and ensuring that there is economic stability throughout the region. I live here in Ketchikan, but I was raised in Metlakatla, where Jade and Denise are. All of my brothers and sisters are Tsimshian and Pawnee. I'm Pawnee. I'm a member of the Pawnee Nation. All my nieces and nephews are Tsimshian and Pawnee from Metlakatla. And when our communities, even though we're separated by water, as we mentioned, we're all on islands here in Southeast Alaska, we're still really closely connected. So when Metlakatla prospers, Ketchikan prospers, and when Ketchikan prospers, Wrangell prospers, and that's how our region works. So when we can get the funding into these communities to get these businesses started, it helps the economy not only of that local community, but because our communities are interconnected, more so than just about any other place I've lived. That the entire region prospers, and the entire region becomes a little bit more economically successful, and not only that, it helps ensure that future generations they're seeing that what can be done, and they're seeing that, hey, maybe I can own a business, maybe I can do the things that I would like to do here in my community, because it is possible. So I'm really excited, and I really just want to take a moment just to thank Ms. Helen Mickle, who I think has just been absolutely innovative in creating these relationships with our communities, not only for this shared position that I have with Spruce Root, but also I just want to quickly touch on something that I want to make sure does not get that gets mentioned, is that another initiative of Tongass Federal Credit Union that I was just absolutely thrilled to be a part of was there's a microsite program, and this is just another thing that I just really admired the leadership of Tongass Federal Credit Union of creating these relationships with really even smaller rural communities that had no financial services. As Denise already mentioned, it could take a plane ride or a boat ride to get to financial services. By creating these respectful and collaborative relationships with these communities, the leadership of Tongass Federal Credit Union was able to work with these communities to open up what's called a microsite. It's not a full branch. It's a smaller space that's provided by the community, and then Tongass works with sometimes as little as 2 people to manage it, and then they're able to provide financial services, which saves someone that trip to driving 45 minutes to an hour to cash a check, or having to take a boat ride to be able to get the financial services. And I've never seen anything like it anywhere else, and it just really is a fantastic relationship building program. Gives these rural communities the financial services that they need, and helps the communities prosper. So There's just been so many great things that have been going on, and I'm just really proud to be a part of it. And just thank everybody here that has been part of this coalition, but also thank you again for joining.
Yeah, thank you very much, Grant. Really appreciate you laying out your work and all the impact that you're making for budding entrepreneurs in Ketchikan and the greater region. I'm glad you brought up Helen because we do need to hear from Helen, who is definitely the sort of the fearless leader that we have for this group. Before I embarrass Helen here for a second, there was a good comment and question in the Q&A here from Ed Well, who said that RES 2025 is a great place for this group to attend and hold workshops. And he's curious if anyone has attended RES before. He says over 4,000 Native leaders attend this function annually. So I'm not sure if anyone's attended that event, but it sounds like something that we'll definitely put on our maps and our radars here. So thank you very much, Ed Well. And then I do want to throw up to Helen to say a few words. Helen has obviously been a huge advocate, a very vocal advocate for Native credit unions and serving Native lands. So maybe we can close out by asking you the question, where does this passion come from? And what motivates you to extend this service to more Native communities across the country?
Wow. Well, you guys said some really nice things about me, and I appreciate it. But the passion comes from Metlakatla. We started in Metlakatla. I grew up in Alaska. I grew up in Ketchikan. These are my family, my neighbors, my friends. I'm not Alaska Native myself, but these are my people. And opening in Metlakatla was so awesome, and getting to know more of the people in Metlakatla, and then seeing what our employees do in Metlakatla. Like it's not me or our Tongass or even Susan Fisher, who was the CEO at the time we opened there. It's Denise and it's Jade, and it's the years that they've spent there. And Jade going into classrooms and teaching kids from the time they're young. I mean, we've been there now since 2005. And I really believe that a lot of the reason that our increased credit scores that have happened over there is because Jade's in there teaching these kids, and they're growing up. She mentioned once we were talking, and she's like, I just keep teaching them those fundamental things. So when they get out of school, they're ready to make a good decision and do the right thing, make a good financial decision. At least they're informed. And I'm like, that is so awesome. And then I shared in the chat an article that Denise wrote. You guys, you'll love reading it. It's just a pleasure to read it. So if you see that in there, click that link, read it. You'll hear more about the work that Denise has been doing, supporting that community. We have credit building loans that really help people either restart if they'd had a problem or start over. And then, so we started there, and then Grant mentioned microsites. The microsites that we open around Southeast are in Indigenous communities. These are primarily Native villages. And as Edwell mentioned, there needs to be more Native lands in Alaska. In the chat not long ago, these are not reservations. That Alaska's a little bit different, and I'm not going to go into that because we're kind of out of time. But these are Native villages, and we're able to go in and serve. We're erasing banking deserts with our community microsites, erasing them with our community microsites. And it's exciting work. It's important work. And I know we can do more of this across the nation. I think we do need more Native credit unions. And I'm gonna say this. I had more things I was going to say, but I want to circle back to something else that Jade had mentioned when she was speaking. It was in her presentation and talking about how these tribal communities need economic development. But it has to be for everyone, not a few. And I'm telling you right now that that's the difference between a credit union in a community and a bank in a Native community. Credit unions are people helping people. You own it. It's cooperative finance. It's running your own place and enriching everyone in the credit union because you are all owners. Like, I'm speaking to credit union people here. You guys should be just like, yeah, they're all owners. They're running the place. And that's what it's got to be. Not, there's some good banks out there. I'm not a bank hater. There's good banks. There's good Native American banks and some really good people running them. But credit unions serving our communities, that's it. That's what, that's what does it. And it makes me excited when I think about, I know we're just getting started here. We want more people involved. We're so excited about what we're doing, and we are excited about moving forward. And I appreciate every person that came today. I appreciate my wonderful people, all of the people on the NACUC, you guys, Leilani, Maria's, Diane, our Lakota folks. Lexi was on for a little while, but guess what? She had to pop off because she was going to do Vita taxes for somebody. She's taking care of her members. And Shayna, of course, Samira, Tom, Denise, Jade, Grant, everybody. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so I don't know how to follow Helen's ending wrap up. I feel a little intimidated now, but I just want to remind people that in the credit union industry, we have some of the most courageous people I know, and Helen is definitely one of those shining lights that just seems to have no fear when it comes to challenging, systematic barriers and challenging opinions. And we need that kind of inspirational leadership, and especially when we're starting a group such as important as this. I really do appreciate your leadership, Helen. I don't know if any of you all saw her speak at the GAC last year, but many of us followed her after and just wanted to find out what she had in her bucket of ideas. And she challenges all of us. And I really encourage, I loved all the feedback in the group chat. I can't tell you how much that fills my heart. I sometimes feel alone when we're asking questions about some of these topics. And now that I see there's so many of us out there, this group has really brought us together. So I just want to remind a few things. We did show our website, Native American Credit Union Coalition. Please go there. You can now, we now have a membership form that we have attached to the website. You can express your interest there on how you want to volunteer, how you might want to contribute to the organization. And I see a lot of discussions about people wanting to talk more, and definitely we will be following up with you. We want ideas, and this is a challenge out there to the credit union industry in general. I know we have development educators all over this nation, and there's plenty of us that have this passion for serving underserved communities. And I'm just going to challenge y'all. We have the education, you just need the push to do it. Give me a call. I'm a DE as well. Another thing, I just want to thank everyone that came to the webinar today, whether as an attendee or as a panelist. I think we're always stronger together. Credit unions, people helping people really does work. And like Helen said, it really does make us different when we're member owned. And so we need to remind people that that really does make the difference in our work and in our direction and our insight and how we even approach our members and discussions. And people helping people might sound like just another credit union philosophy, but live it. I truly challenge you, live it. And I think Tongass Credit Union and our other credit unions on the call have exhibited that with phenomenal grace. Many blessings to all of you in the communities you serve, and I really appreciate you joining us today. You will be receiving emails and calls from us. So thank you all, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Dan. Bye.